Mr. James, are you on the line?
Yes, I'm here.
Perfect. So I'll give a quick intro, and then I'll hand it off to James. So in the packet in your last meeting, there was some homework about 500 pages worth of reading. So in anticipation of this committee, we hired Weston & Sampson. So Weston & Sampson is a large engineering firm. They are actually based on Walker's Brook in Reading. So we hired them to do an environmental site assessment, essentially a lay of the land. That was in the packet. We also hired them to do a survey of the land, a wetlands delineation. So essentially, where the wetlands are, and a proposed subdivision plan. That was also in the packet, and finally a geotech. So basically borings on the site to give us a sense of the soils, depth of bedrock, and those kind of things, as well as environmental testing of the property. What I thought we would do is essentially have James just walk us through high level on the information, and if you have any questions, he's here to answer them.
All right.
Very good. Okay. Well,
yeah, take it away. Thanks.
Yes, thank you. Well, I'll introduce myself. I'm James Pearson with Weston & Sampson, and Fidel did a good job of describing just kind of in a nutshell what we've done to date. And it sounds like you've had some materials to review. If you don't mind, I'll go ahead and I'll share my screen, and I'll just kind of go through those materials with you really quick. And I'm sharing momentarily. Just give me a moment. This one. Okay, can everyone see my screen?
Yep.
Okay, very good. So as Fidel mentioned, we did a boundary survey. The survey was performed in April 2022. We provided a map of survey as our deliverable for that, and we also added some contours on the map that were they were based on LiDAR data, which is kind of a publicly available source of contours. So they're not really, it's not really a topographic survey. They're just there for kind of planning and informational purposes. And we did a delineation of the wetland resource areas too, as Fidel mentioned. So the graphic that you have in front of you is just sort of it's sort of the survey map with sort of an aerial image underlaid on it, just so you can kind of get a lay of the land to figure out where this is exactly. So of course we have Haverhill Street here off to the left of the page, and then Symonds Way coming off of it. And you can see the building here is the ice arena, and going down the road, I understand, I believe there's the rifle club back here. So this bold red line represents the entire parcel that's there today. And then we have a smaller red line that indicates where we would like to subdivide to split off a smaller parcel. Here, kind of in the yellow, we have the edges of where the wetland was delineated. So this boundary line that we're hoping to create is just offset slightly from the wetlands. It's kind of slightly on the wetland side. And the idea would be, of course, to make this smaller parcel be kind of high and dry, to make it a developable parcel. And of course, this entire area in the back on this other parcel would all be wetlands. So I'll switch over to another view that doesn't have the aerial imagery, that's maybe a little less busy. So this is really the map of the survey right here, and I've added some colored highlighted information. Here again, this time in blue, we have kind of the wetland line delineated right here. And then what I've shown in green right here is an area that is outside of the 35-foot buffer from the wetlands, okay? Because under the bylaws, a building foundation can't be located any closer to the wetlands than 35 feet. And we have up on the top here, the roadway that comes through here is actually not in a public right of way. It's actually located within an easement that has been created on this lot that goes through here. So So I've highlighted in green up to the edge of the easement line, and then we have a roadway going through in this area here that's white. So what we have is, once this is subdivided, we would have parcel A, which is this larger parcel with the wetlands that would be about 9.9 acres. We would have this parcel B, which is a smaller parcel, and it's 4.9 acres in total. The area highlighted in green would end up being about 2.5 acres. So that just kind of gives you an idea of the magnitude of things. So moving along, as Fidel mentioned, we did a geotechnical investigation. We did multiple borings and test pits throughout this parcel B, primarily to just get sort of a preliminary idea of, you know, what's out there, mainly just for informational purposes, so that if this was to develop, somebody could have just sort of an educated idea of what is actually out here. If someone was to actually do a development plan on this to have a building, they would probably want to go out and do some additional geotechnical work at that time, specific to the foundation locations, you know. But what we've done is about as much as we can do geotechnical wise to just sort of give somebody a synopsis of what's out there. And what we did find out there was that there were a few locations where it appeared some fill material had been brought on site historically. There were areas, of course, that the upper layer of the soil was organic material, as is expected. And there's some materials that were sandy and kind of silty. And essentially what our recommendation was out of that report was that the material that we were seeing would probably allow for a building to be constructed here on a conventional spread footing type of foundation. So you wouldn't have to go and do anything crazy like, you know, putting in piles or things like that. It could be a conventional foundation. The only thing that someone would have to do if they were to develop this would be to do some excavation to remove, you know, the organics and any other unsuitable materials underneath the foundation and underneath any slabs, and replace that with structural fill. And all that's summarized in the report. The environmental investigation, our environmental people kind of piggybacked on our geotechnical crew, because the geotechnical crew was doing the test pits, and that way the environmental crew was able to kind of check out the soils a little bit. With the environmental investigation, we looked at not just a site investigation, but we also kind of did a historical screening. And to just sort of get you an idea of the scope of this, we refer to this as a preliminary environmental screening. It's really just coming to a site, getting a general idea of the history and the character of the site, to inform decisions as to whether we need to do further testing or further exploration, or whether, you know, things just look pretty clear and no red flags. So the historical uses of the site, there's been a rifle club nearby, and there was historically a Nike missile facility nearby. The records seem to indicate that the activities mostly occurred to the north and the west of this specific site. It's possible that the site itself could have been used by the activities, but we just don't have good information as to whether that was the case or not. The site itself, though, most recently, from what we can gather, was used as a yard for the storage of construction materials. There are actually some construction materials still present on the site. Some of those things, I mean, you can see there's also a couple of abandoned cars that we found on site. You know, there's old pieces of manholes, precast concrete manholes, and just some miscellaneous, you know, these look like old precast bridge pieces and things of that nature that are just in various locations throughout the site. So you know, we can see evidence of that. When they did the excavations and they were looking at the soils, what they did is they used they have a tool that can kind of sniff out to see if there's any sort of trace evidence of certain hazardous substances, and it's not a tool that gives you like a definitive answer. It's just something that you use for preliminary screening, and it did sniff some kind of elevated readings in a couple of the pits. So it indicates that there could be a potential presence of some kind of a contaminant. But further testing would need to be done to identify whether that was truly the case and whether it was a contaminant that would be of concern under the state MCP. The reason why we wouldn't have carried the investigations any further than that is because what happens is if you do positively identify a regulated contaminant, then you are automatically on the hook now to do something about it. And what you have to do about it really kind of depends upon what that substance is. It may be just a simple matter of, some substances will only require, maybe some additional testing, and then maybe, some paperwork with the state. And then if it was something really bad, then it could require some level of mitigation. So we haven't taken it to that next level yet because we're not trying to get the town on the hook to do something. But what we did do is we've gone far enough to basically identify that, there are a few flags with this site. The historical uses suggest that maybe there could have been some contamination brought in, the presence of the abandoned cars and the presence of some fill that was brought in and these construction materials. Those historical things really are probably the bigger thing to suggest that, there could be potential for some contaminants on the site. And so for anyone who's going to develop this site, that would be something that they would want to be aware of. And there's really one of two ways that this could be approached going forward. So, depending on what you were going to do with this site. So let's say that there was a scenario where, you were going to partner with like a private developer, and let's say that you decided, well, we're going to sell this parcel to that developer. Okay. So you could be in a situation where, based on what we've found so far, the developer could look at that and say, well, there's a possibility of contaminants, but we don't really know for sure. So to some, that might mean that, it'd be a bargaining chip to sort of offer a lower price on the property. The other way to do it is, if the town were interested, you guys could go in and we could bite the bullet and do the sampling, knowing that we might encounter some hazardous materials, and then we just need to be prepared for, possibly having to pay the cost of doing whatever additional documentation or testing might need to be done to sort of obtain some kind of closure of that issue. And then in that case, then you'd be armed with some specific information, and everybody would be going into it with their eyes wide open. It just has to be recognized that there is a cost to that potentially if something is found on site. So, if you were to ask me my recommendation, I would probably say, lean on the side of biting the bullet and going in and doing that testing. But again, it's a decision that can't be taken lightly, because you do have to recognize that it could potentially come at a cost if something is discovered. So in any case, that's really kind of a high-level overview of what's been conducted to date. Again, it was the survey, it was the wetland flagging, it was the geotechnical work and the environmental work. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that anyone might have.
Anyone have any questions? Chuck?
Thank you. So with regard to the environmental assessment, what type of costs are you talking? Not if you find something, but just to do the actual survey or site assessment, I guess.
Yeah, if we were going to get in and try to do some more detailed site assessment where we actually take hard samples and take them to a laboratory and get them tested and write up the necessary documentation associated with that. It could be like, don't hold me to this, but I'm going to say somewhere in the $15,000 ballpark, just for that initial piece of it. And then, beyond that, if we do discover some substances, then it becomes a question of, well, what is it that we discovered? And then from there, the cost is really unknown because it just kind of really depends on what was found, if anything's found. If nothing's found, well then that's great. Then you've kind of ruled that out.
Following that thread, if something is found, I'm just curious, I don't really know the answer to this. What's the typical time frame or time range that the town would be on the hook to then do something about it? Knowing that the what to do depends on what is found.
Yeah, so there are some statutory timelines for that, and I don't have those off the top of my head, but I could follow up, and I could give Fidel kind of a more positive outline as to what those timelines are precisely. I do know that just from what I've heard, I think it ranges, kind of in a few months to a year type of thing, depending on the level of documentation that was necessary. But if you want something a little more hard and concrete on that, I can follow up with one of our experts on that area, and we can get you that information.
I think that's fine for me. It's not 10 years. It's yeah. Okay.
Angela, yep.
Thank you. So the area in green, which you said you would sort of parcel off, you said that there's about 2.5 acres of developable land. Is that right? About 2.5 from that whole parcel?
So let me be very clear on that. What I've done is I've highlighted an area that skirts the edge of a roadway easement on this side and the edge of this 35-foot wetland buffer on this side. The 35-foot wetland buffer is a line beyond which you can't put a building foundation. So I can't put a building foundation closer than 35 feet to the wetlands. There might be some other things that I can do, but I certainly can't get any closer than 25 feet.
Okay.
The easement line over here, you probably wouldn't build a building right up against the edge of the easement. You're probably going to have some kind of a setback. So the 2.5 acres, the area shaded green, would also not necessarily take into account any possible building setbacks. But what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to illustrate that even though parcel B is 4.9 acres overall, because of the presence of some buffers and some wetlands, we just have to be cognizant that the actual buildable area is a little bit smaller. That's the main takeaway here. And I'm not saying that 2.5 is your total building envelope, because like I said, it could be a little smaller because of setbacks.
Okay. I think that when that whole area is the lot that was purchased for $750,000. Is that right? That whole dark, the whole area in red. Okay. And so when we
On the top, on the other side.
But yeah, an additional, that's not buildable at all.
well, that was a separate purchase.
It was the same. So there's a 10 acres that is north, but it's landlocked around wetlands area, so it has no access.
So there were 3 articles at town meeting, right? Am I right about that? There were 3 articles at town meeting. And so the 3 pieces of the 3 parcels were purchased in separate articles.
2,
3? No,
2.
true.
Yeah. The 10 acre and the 15.2.
All at one price.
Yeah.
There were 2.
All at one price.
And
All at one price?
Yeah.
and
one
doesn't
price.
doesn't the is it the smaller parcel of the 2 have access to the gun road?
I'm sorry, can I?
No, sorry.
So
Yeah, 2.
there's a parcel that was approximately 10 acres that was appraised at 10,000 and another parcel that was 15 acres that had a different, the other appraisal. And that's the one that I'm talking about. So the approximately 15 acres, the wooded area to the right of the skating rink, that's
That's
that whole thing.
Correct.
And that is what we paid $750 $750,000 for?
So two parcels, right? On the packet, as you're saying, it was parcel ID 04159.
Yeah.
And then parcel ID 035-133. My understanding is that it was purchased in a bundle, if you will. It was purchased together. But we knew that the 10-acre parcel 04159 was landlocked and nothing could be done with it. It
Okay.
essentially handed to conservation.
So in any case, that larger one, the appraisal that we got said that it would be like 4 house lots. And that was so I'm just wondering, is that consistent with what was sort of found out by Weston and Sampson?
So Weston and Sampson didn't lay anything out in terms of like housing or fields or, anything. So we wanted to do enough engineering so that we had a lay of the land, basically what is buildable.
Okay.
And the only thing that I wanted to clarify is that the green is basically where the limits of a building could be, right?
Okay.
We could build inside of the 35-foot buffer, but it requires approval from conservation. In my conversations with the conservation administrator is they could potentially approve it if there is public use.
Okay.
So if it's a field or if it's a parking lot or if it's a path of recreation, a path of some sort.
Or it could be subdivided for housing too within so that's sort of where if it's about 2.5 acres, that's where it was. So yeah, I'm just trying to sort of see if what we found out today was in keeping with what we found out a couple of years ago.
Yep. So the 10-acre spot is not part of our mission. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, correct. Yeah,
Correct.
it's not buildable. I mean, it is landlocked. It's
But if it's not, can it be used for a field purpose? I mean,
I don't think so, but I'm not 100% sure. It was basically a gift.
You'd still have to be able to get access to it.
Yeah.
well, yeah, I mean,
So if conservation were to build a trail into it and have a field in there.
It's right center field, John,
okay,
beyond the tree line.
that's over toward where the gun range is.
The gun range doesn't, the gun range buffers that.
Right,
No shooting goes on.
right. And can I ask?
Yeah, sure. Fire away.
What's with the 15.2 acre site, which road is accessing that service road or the road that goes into the fields there?
Range road.
That's the one in the back on the other,
There's Range road.
that's the one on the back of the ice rink that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. The red, where the top red line is.
The road to Reading, right?
So not.
Yeah, right
so
there. Right there. Yep. Right there.
This parcel then is beyond the parking lot that Burbank uses, and right behind it there. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. I'm just trying to get my bearings on where.
James, what is the rough dimensions of the buildable area? Just, I know it's not a rectangle or anything like that, but how long is that space and roughly how deep is it?
Well, I can pull a measurement on it right now. So in this location right here, it's about, 160-ish. And if I was to take the total length of it from this end, from this end to this end, it's on the order of about almost 800 feet, 776.
And then the little neck, how narrow does it get? Just curious.
This spot right here where it gets a little narrower right here is about 80 feet. And this end of it over here is about 37.
That's really tiny.
Yeah, the 80 feet, I think you were concerned about probably for cars to get through and fire trucks to get through and stuff like that.
Just
Cars,
curious how
yeah.
much space we had.
Yeah,
for-
right.
yeah, for development. Okay. Thanks.
So they were handled in two separate articles, the piece behind it and this whole area.
Right, there
It
are
wasn't a
two
gift. There were two articles for this.
Right,
yeah.
right.
One price.
But basically a gift, that's what I'm saying. All right, any other questions for James?
Just following up on the contamination, that has to, if there's anything to be built on the site, that has to happen regardless. Whether we do it or the developer does it, like you can't just build on there without doing the testing first, correct?
So where the contamination becomes an issue is if they are going to try to haul material off-site. And generally that does happen as a result of construction. You usually, I mean, I guess in some instances, maybe they could keep some material on site, but you got to remember there's a fair amount of debris here. There's going to be things they're going to want to haul off. And the minute you start having to haul things off, you're obligated to test. So the developer would have to test that. And they'd probably have to do that regardless. But, like I said, if a developer is entertaining the option of buying this parcel from you guys, let's say, if there's an absence of information, they're just going to assume the worst. They're going to assume that it's just going to be contaminated stuff, and they're going to look to negotiate a lower price accordingly. Whereas if they're walking in with their eyes open, and let's say you find maybe there is some stuff, but it's pretty minor, and maybe they wouldn't have to haul any contaminated material off, then you're probably in a better negotiating position at that point.
Okay.
But it's a trade-off, right? Because you obviously then you'd have to the town would have to pay the cost of the testing then. So there's that trade-off.
Thanks.
Any other questions for James? All right, thank you very much. I'm sure if we have
Thank
any
you.
questions, we
Thank
can
you.
cipher them through Fidel.
Yes, he knows where to find me. Thank
Okay.
you, everyone.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
All right, so next on the agenda, discussion on town needs related to public-owned lands, which this is. So we've owned this for over 3 years now, or about 3 years. Purchased it in 2019. COVID hit, so it was kind of shelved for a while. And this is why the committee was formed, to see what we can do. And after this presentation by Weston and Sampson, I guess I'll get a sense of you all here is, do we go forward and do a 21E? So then we know what we can and can't do. I mean, if it's really contaminated, then we have bigger issues. But if it's just surface level contamination, or just, there was cars there and some gasoline spilled and they changed oil on the property 50 years ago. If any building is going to go on this property, a 21E is going to have to be formed. They're going to have to drill and take samples and report it to the state. So either we do that now so we know what we're up against, or we just talk and highest and best use. What do we want there as a board, as a town? And then proceed if we decide to proceed. I know there's a clock. It'd be nice to know the clock on if we do find contaminants. Do we have a year? Do we have 180 days? Because I don't know that personally. So that'll probably be helpful, I think, at least for me. And maybe there's different timelines for different contaminants. I doubt it's a Superfund site. I doubt that. So, but who knows what's under there? So like to have the discussion about needs, what's its fields, buildings, housing, whatever. And if it's going to be any kind of structure, we're going to have to deal with the environmental impact, and most likely we're going to be paying for it.
I mean, I think, first of all, I think that it's better to kind of at least start down the road as to what we want to put there and then figure out what level of a assessment you need. And I think you're going to need not just a building, even, you know, even if it's fields, I think you're going to need an assessment because, you know, people are, you know, walking around.
Right.
I mean, I'll just throw out my thoughts on that. I guess, are we on number 3 on the agenda? I mean, when I looked at this, when we did it, talked about it at town meeting, I mean, I've always had recreation in my mind. And, you know, my idea would be to do some level of recreation on, because we already have a skating rink down there. We already have a
Fields.
baseball / soccer practice field down there. So, and we know in the town, we don't have a surplus of fields. So I think that, you know, in my mind, unless someone convinced me otherwise, I never came into this thinking of housing. I was thinking of recreation use. So I'll shut up there.
No, I think we all need to give our thoughts. Yeah.
I'm interested in any discussion and perspectives on like an update of town needs. And I will also just chime in saying, I recall the town meeting discussion, and granted, I tend to bring lens of recreation to a lot of things, so I may have had selective hearing, but I think I recall a lot of discussion about how this could be an asset for recreation in terms of the reason people were supporting it. The other thing that's on my mind is right at that location. It's a hub of recreation. We've got a skating rink, we've got ball fields, we've got a gun range. And so what I'm looking for is also, you know, what's a use that both meets the town need and also is a compatible use where we aren't going to be investing in something where people, I am not against housing, but I think we would need to carefully consider, will people be happy living next to all of that activity
Right.
all the
right.
time? Yeah.
Anyone else?
Especially the gun range.
Yeah, that's a big one.
I think that it's a very small parcel, so to even think about housing out there, I think is kind of misguided in my mind. But there are so many recreational things you can do there, including, I know I heard from someone from the Burbank, from the Y, saying, why not another pool, pickleball courts, things that are inside as a building too. But it would be good for me to hear what people want before we make any determination. And I'm thinking that it would be good to know where we're going before we do testing, because it may be limited testing that we need to do based upon what our needs are going to be. So I'm not 100% convinced that we have to rush into any kind of testing at this point in time, but I do want to hear what other people think they'd like to see that property to be.
Yeah, no, I agree. That's why we're doing this.
I'll second everything Nancy said. Good to hear what other people think throughout the public, throughout the community. Personally, does seem like a great opportunity for recreation right there. Something that's more just, I mean, I know we need some soccer and baseball fields around town, so that's definitely on my mind. A swimming pool would be nice, or indoor, outdoor. It just seems to be a better use for that site, rather than people that are sleeping there overnight, since you do have some things that are not the most appropriate for housing, in my opinion. But if that makes sense, that's fine. But I know there are other ideas out there, and I agree, if we're not going to be building on the whole green area, as awkward as it is, there's no sense. It's just, once we kind of have an idea of what we want to do, then you can say, okay, let's test this part of the site rather than parts we're not even building on. So it makes sense to wait a little bit, so we have some direction.
Yeah. Angela, anything?
Yeah, so I agree that it makes sense to kind of get more of a direction before we jump into doing the testing. I mentioned the housing only because I was rereading some of the old paperwork, and the appraisal that was presented to town meeting was based upon there being 4 buildable lots there. So that was considered, possibly at the time that was the highest and best use or the highest. So that's why I brought it up. Not that I think that it's the best place for housing. I do want to think about, I'd like to, at least in the very beginning, to just throw out any kind of thing. If there is a community/senior center, is that a possibility there? We are always looking for field space. Field space is at a premium. We need pickleball courts, and we need them away from people's houses because it makes a lot of noise. So that would, compete with the guns.
We'll add.
Guns going on.
Add to
right?
Time it right.
The time with that. So,
We have a symphony.
so it does, recreation does make sense there, but where this is just the very beginning of the process, I really think that I would like to keep, a broader or just a more open mind of the possibilities that could be there and whether or not the senior center is on it. And I do think that we need to think about what fits in that space, but we also need to think about what has the town been talking about for the past few years, and that has to drive us and has to drive this process too. Not just what do we see on this site, but what are the priorities for the town and how does that dovetail into what we're doing here?
Yeah, I don't disagree. And that's why we're going to do a survey and get some input, just like, Recalc did, and get that community input. Obviously, as you all said, from the way it sits now, the layout, recreation makes the most sense, right? You ask anybody, what's there now? Oh, skating rink, some fields, foliage in the back, and one house on Havel Street, and like, okay, so yeah, maybe do it multi-purpose. We have turf 1, turf 2, have it turf 3 and 4, whatever. But yeah, when we bought this 3 years ago, I had the same thinking as Chuck. I imagined a building at least several stories as high as the town will let us, and having different activities going on those different levels. Picture a Lifetime Athletic or a Lifetime Fitness or one of those massive gyms that has basketball, pickleball, a pool, a track, open space, whatever. That's what I've envisioned. But again, we have to see what the town, if they share those visions. Almost all of us said recreation comes to top of mind. And then we'll have to see. Senior community center is still in the works. As far as a town need/want, there's a price tag with that. There'll be a price tag with this. Do we do public-private? Do we build it ourselves? I think with Killam and a potential senior community center, adding another structure to the books is going to be pretty taxing for the taxpayers. But so that, again, that's what I envisioned over 3 years ago. As a building, maybe some fields, but with 2.5 acres, it doesn't seem possible. I thought we would have access to at least the 4+ acres, but it doesn't seem that way for some open fields or,
I think it depends on our conversations with conservation. So again, allowing construction within the 35-foot buffer as long as there's a public good, right? I mean, there's some discretion there, but I'm sure we're going to get it's going to be a conversation.
Yeah, you'd have to get a variance, so you'd have to come before the commission and get agreement with the commission.
Right. All right. I get that. That's further down the road.
Yeah, but I guess I'll say, I mean, like if looking at that drawing, if the bottom of the field is like, a little bit inside the buffer, right? I mean, it's
5 feet or whatever.
Exactly.
Yeah, right.
I would imagine that conservation would weigh essentially the public benefit of allowing that construction to happen.
And I'll speak on behalf of conservation. Generally, when we see that, we're not very kind to variances. So, but I think since, depending on what's being offered, yeah, we would be able to, from my point of view, see the public good of something that's for the recreation to the town.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
so when I heard that, I mean, I'm the lay person when it comes to conservation. When I came in here tonight, I'm thinking we have 15 acres. And I'm hearing, a lot less than that. So, we would want to, have a better sense as to exactly how much we have and how much we can potentially get.
The problem is it's a conversation of like what comes first, the chicken or the egg, right? I mean, like, because if you all told me go for the building and come back and and come back with the best fit of a building in that property, right? That's easy. But if it's like a building, bocce courts, soccer fields, right? I mean, like it depends on what is our sense of what's going to go in there. Yeah.
I'll add to say, I'm not surprised that we only have 2.5 acres. I also kind of remember from town meeting, this is somebody saying that's mostly wetland and somebody else saying, but here are the dimensions of a baseball field and you can fit it. So somewhere in there, I remember that it was a funny, weird, this is confirmed it, piece of land.
Configuration, yeah.
And already I'm so excited to hear what the community might envision for this property. Already just around this table, there's the recreation some people think of as like open air recreation. I don't hear any of us saying, oh yeah, we would, discount a building that might be a community center. We know that there's a conversation about, I don't know exactly what it's being called, the community center, senior center. Community centers are also compatible with like some indoor basketball courts that I grew up in. Indoor basketball court across the street from a pool next door to a school. So there could be lots of activity and different types of activity that could be compatible with just the movement in and out and the times of day that people are coming in that area. I think let's do a survey because it'd be really interesting to see what people have to say and how they prioritize some things.
Yeah, I agree. And plus we live in New England. So, recreation, indoor space, climate controlled, with not needing leaf blowers or shovels to play pickleball in the winter or just noise, whatever. I mean, the demand for recreation space slash needs. I mean, Angela and Chuck know all of a sudden youth basketball for a couple of grades is a surge again for basketball and for clinics. And a lot of the kids are going out of Reading. So, there's waves of stuff, right? 20 years ago, did we have lacrosse in Reading? Probably not. I don't know if, John or Chuck would know. So all of a sudden, lacrosse is bursting at the seams, right? For boys and for girls. So, what's next?
Pickleball.
Pickleball, yeah, pickleball, but that's not all ages yet. It'll get there, but that's not all ages yet. It's, it's pretty active. But yeah, so, again, basketball, lacrosse, soccer, probably not baseball per se, maybe practice, but not obviously a game. But we are, if we had kids and taking our kids to all these, to the Danvers indoor place, or taking them to the place on Route 1, Hockey USA for hockey. Then they have that hard court for practice and for street hockey, and then having other fields for multi-purpose. There's a place in not near Foxborough, Four Kicks, and I've taken my kids there. They have basketball, soccer, game room. I mean, it's just it's a private entity, but that's kind of what I envision. But again,
Yeah, I was at in Wellesley. I think they call it the sports, some sort of sports center. There's a pool and lacrosse and hockey. Again, that's a 2-story structure. It was pretty big. I mean, actually, it's compact as Wellesley. That's again what I picture. But I know there are other ideas that people would want to put on the table in the community. So.
oh yeah,
John,
that's fine. Oh,
So
Angela and John.
So a community survey, I think that's on it, but we're also
Yep.
sort of tasked with developing an evaluation scheme too, right? So how, you know, a survey is one method of community input. How do we get other methods of community input and how do we evaluate? But how do we structure that?
Is there a company that can help us? I know Recalc had,
Hmm.
support to get their information out there and be able to evaluate. Is there a budget for this committee to do something similar? Yeah, no, I figured not.
There's a bowl at the door though.
Yeah, right, there you go.
It's a what? A bowl?
at the door.
There's a bowl at the door.
At the door. Okay.
Put some coins in.
I'm just, I mean, for us to task and do all that is a lot of time and I'm not sure I know how to do it.
It is. And I, okay, so
No, and I
we
think,
can
we're-
stick to the agenda, but I think that these are all things that like, who are we bring?
How do we do that process?
How do we do that?
It's
What
on
is
the
the whole
agenda.
process?
And, I will say that the town, well, I guess the staff went before town meeting and asked for $40,000 to fund the work that is happening at the senior center, right? I mean, and it was a contract with UMass Boston to do the outreach, to have the public forums, the sessions. I mean, it's not out of the question. And the town meeting is in April, so that's something that we wanted to do. We could certainly do that.
I just think we want to make it effective. It'd be good to have it designed in a way that's effective.
A survey.
A survey.
A community survey.
Yeah, community survey and being able to evaluate that survey. If we
Yes.
want people
That
to.
evaluation thing, sorry,
Oh, yeah.
seems like it's very important and that probably is, it might be on the agenda, but a job for this committee is what are the filters that we're going to put it through, what are,
Yeah.
is it cost effectiveness, is it,
Right.
Right.
is it, the number of people it serves, is it, I'm just throwing out
Right.
some, filling a void in a service that we aren't able to offer in town. I'm just making some things up. What's our decision-making process? What are the
Right.
filters that we're putting ourselves through ultimately to make a recommendation, right?
And I know, John, I think the important part, at the outset of the survey is, a one paragraph executive summary as to what we have.
Right.
Because
Yeah.
we kind of have it all over the place right now, and we found, you knew it was only gonna be 2.5, I didn't.
I just remember.
So when you're gonna ask questions, we gotta explain what we actually have as closely as possible. Sorry, John.
John,
Are
have,
you open to, citizen comment? Because otherwise I'm happy to just sit, but
yeah, no, and I was gonna, yeah, no, I have a comment, but yeah, I think we,
I think that the thing for the committee to consider is that we know that there's 2.5 acres that actually can be built on. But there are 200 acres adjacent that the town owns that is currently recreational area. And I think it's going to be really important if you go down the recreational road to consider the integration of whatever you do with this parcel. I mean, there has been a vision for many years that this parcel could enhance and release kind of a sleeping giant of land that sits around the baseball field. I mean, there is a lot of opportunity here. There is a lot of available land that, for example, we know that there's 10 acres that's landlocked and unbuildable. We also know that there's about 12 acres that is wet, but that's owned by the town, not by conservation. Maybe, an arrangement can be made, which is not uncommon and has been done on a regular basis, where some encroachments allowed because there's a gift from the town to the conservation committee of multi-acres. That's happened in this town repeatedly over many years. I think it's really important that the 2.5 acres not be isolated in your heads as the only thing that goes on here. Because if you think about the Birch Meadow, the much mentioned Birch Meadow plan that's now actually finally starting to activate itself is a holistic look at, all those acres in the center of town. You have a similar situation that you could develop with a master plan for the entire Symonds Way area. I realize that the hockey rink is run by an agency, but it's on town land. Baseball field is used for games. It's used for practice. It's used for soccer practice. It's used for all kinds of stuff, actually. And that's many acres. And at the far end of that is even more acres, probably large enough to house a lacrosse, football, soccer field. I would urge you to think about this as a holistic project of recreation, if recreation is the direction you go.
Yeah, so Fidel and I sat down a few weeks ago, and so I don't know if you can pull up the GIS. Fidel, there's some land that the town owns. So picture Symonds Way, and you look out your car window, and Burbank is on your right. So we have pockets of land, again, haven't been surveyed or haven't been, fully delineated, but there's pockets of land that we own that potentially could be of use. It can be used and of use to, whether it's land swaps, whether it's parking, whether it's fields. So when I learned about that, because I didn't know that until recently, I said, oh, it's in this area. And so that's something I think, it's not necessarily the charge, but it's literally across the street from this land.
I guess it would depend, even though it might be owned by the town, if it still has conservation or wetlands on there, even though it's owned by town, it may not be developable.
Right.
So that's, there's a difference here. Even though it's town owned, it may still be all wetlands.
No, I agree. But I'm saying something we need to
Where
consider.
are you talking about the land that's behind the third baseline over that way?
He's getting it.
There is some conservation land over there. One of the other things to remember, several of you talked about a building, let's call it a field house, that has multi-recreational use. That could easily incorporate a senior community center through the course of the day, because those things don't become live till 4 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon. And when would seniors be more interested in utilizing an advanced community center for them? I would suggest it's probably from 8 o'clock in the morning till probably 4 o'clock in the afternoon, which is when a building like that you could put there could really solve two problems or two, pending issues. What do you do with this land? We need more recreation. We also need a place for seniors to gather and utilize program properly. I think you have the potential to do all of that in one spot here.
Did the survey bear that out? Because I thought that there was a thought that seniors wanted expanded times. Am I remembering that correctly? Do you know? Because it seemed like, and I'm just playing devil's advocate, but with what John said, did the survey bear that out? Because I thought that was one of the things that the seniors said they wanted, which was more than just like the 8 to 4. They wanted evening and weekend hours.
Yeah. Yes, they do.
Of course. Yeah. Okay. So
But I think it depends on what population of seniors you're talking about.
Right.
That it's a broad.
under 90, no, point taken. There's a difference between a 60 to 70 and 70 to 80, 80, 90.
They all use
okay.
the senior
They all
centers.
use-
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, okay.
We're not
So,
talking 90 of them.
so it would be, yeah.
Yes. So what Carla was bring up essentially is that the property that we are discussing is this shape here, right? But the town owns this entire land in the up north, and what you're seeing in this textured area is the wetlands, and this is approximate based on GIS, right? It is not properly engineered. Sorry, I see Nancy squinting, so I'm gonna.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say, do you have the wetlands up on the map? Is it
Yeah. So
showing? Okay.
So the wetlands is this little
Shaded.
Shaded area,
Okay.
gotcha. Yeah, okay. So what's the pond there? Is that a,
Oh, you know, it's also useful, if you put on the aerial imagery, then everybody can see where the baseball field is.
The baseball field's to the right, yeah, that pond is
Yeah,
behind the
yeah.
third baseline.
lots of trees?
Pond wetlands, or is that just?
So is any of the other
Sort of.
land that the town owns around there, is any other, is any of it developable or not really?
I mean, I couldn't answer that. With certainty. From what I'm seeing in GIS here, it seems like it is, right? I mean, it seems like at least some of the portion that's on the other side of the Burnt Bank Ice Arena, on the other side of that road, seems to be developable. How big is it? And specifically, I'm talking about like the area that's across the street, right? So basically in here.
Yeah.
Right. That appears to be developable. I mean, we would have to do the same exercise, do a survey, do wetlands delineation, see what's out there.
So can I?
Yeah.
So, I mean, to John's point, we have more than 2.5 acres that we can, so, can you put that?
Yeah.
If you click on the DEP wetlands.
Yeah.
Also, it'll show what the area for that.
So, what the survey, would want to know, we have more to play with than, which we already own, so we're not proposing that we buy that, right? We already own.
We already own that.
Yeah.
We already own that.
So, and it's not getting used now,
Reading wetlands, yeah, the orange, it's DEP.
so I guess.
So it's really
Got a
just.
field house there, a parking lot across the street on the land that has some potential potential. It changes picture.
So it might be
Or
just.
move the parking that right now is behind the ice rink.
Yeah, that's 4 acres.
Over to where that other land and.
The opportunities,
Yeah.
the amount of land that this town owns there begs for you folks to think about this holistic way, in my opinion.
Yeah, and, oh,
Hi, I'm Susan Bowe. I'm not good at public speaking, so hoping that I don't faint. But I'm here just to speak kind of on behalf of Reading Composts. I think Judy Coltman might have spoken to you, Carlo, and I've also just briefly conversed with Fidel. But we are just a group of people that live in Reading who care deeply about the environment. And we think that we'd love for people to compost food scraps, whether they do it in their backyard, or whether they do it through a group that comes and services Reading, like Black Earth Compost. And Black Earth Compost is looking for satellite sites around New England, and they asked if we might consider having them be a satellite site, but it was on the Grove Street land, and that didn't get anywhere. But I just am hoping that something environmental could be considered on this land, especially hearing that there might be additional land. And it would be great environmentally, but it would also save money for the town. Currently, we in Reading have around 423 subscribers that get their food scrap compost picked up every single week, and they pay for it. And the DPW supports that in the town. They offer a free bin and a free first roll of bags to anybody that signs up with Black Earth. And so, you know, what you have hauled away in your trash is the wet organics. That's what weighs the most for towns to be taken away. So if you were having that composted, and we would have the benefit of having the compost satellite site here in Reading would obviously save a lot of money for compost or for trash being taken away. And then just the environmental benefits. I think that if you have children or no children, you should be composting, whether you do it in your backyard or whether you do it with a service or whatever. So it would be great and responsible if we could consider doing something environmental with this land, not just for the benefit of humans, but for the earth.
Susan, do you have any idea what a satellite site might look like?
Yes, in fact, you're welcome to come and see the one that they're building. They have, so this is Black Earth Compost. Again, I do not work for them. I do not anything. I just know they're involved here in Reading and they're doing great for the earth. And so I support them. But they are building at Manchester by the Sea an indoor facility. It allows you to cook it faster, be more controlled. They can aerate it and add water as they want, and they really can regulate it, and it cooks in like half the time that you would if it's outdoors. So they're building one currently, and I've talked to them, and I have some dates that you're welcome to come up. We can do a field trip. You can go up and see what they're building. And did that answer your question, Andrew? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm just curious if this site's even viable for them, like.
Yeah, they build it on a slab. It thinks that it's like, I think, an acre and a half or something is what, but they also want to involve your yard wastes because they need the carbon element that they put in with the organics, and it's a
Process.
thing that cooks it faster and what have you. So, so there's a lot of details to be worked out, but it's just a kind of a neat idea. And I'd love for the town to learn about it, even if it doesn't work out at this particular location, just to have the idea and realize what a great benefit it would be for the town for saving money for the town and all those things.
You said it didn't work out at the Grove Street site. What was the issue there?
I actually don't know.
You know,
Before my time.
Yep, before my time too. This is an easy on, easy off. And I don't think that it would just be Reading residents' food waste. It could be a satellite site so that you wouldn't have the trucks having to go all the way up to Manchester by the Sea to offload. It's just a lot of good environmental things happening here.
and cost savings.
For the town, for the removal of our trash and that kind of thing. And just environmentally for the kids. And also another thing that's happening in town is Birch Meadow School has started a pilot program just the first couple of weeks for their cafeterias and the whole food service. So that's a brand new thing, and we're hoping that will go well, and maybe that can be adopted throughout the town. So again, it's just a group of people that care deeply and about environmental causes, and so just wanted to bring that to the table.
No, thank you.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's like how do we evaluate? Like I agree with John. I think the senior center and the sports complex can be merged. That one's a little more challenging potentially. So I don't know how we evaluate compost versus.
Well, I think, I'm a Black Earth subscriber in full disclosure. And so as a house, we're dwindling because we have two at college. But so we don't maybe put it out every week. But, you put your flowers that I get my wife all the time in there and other things, right?
So,
Hopefully she's watching, but,
Bones and.
Yeah.
things that you can't cook in your backyard because of animals or whatever.
exactly.
It's such a higher heat that they really can break it all down very quickly.
So there was a big push, over a year ago, because we had a number of subscribers and we did every threshold, we got a discount. And then we added 100, let's say 100 households, and now we're at 400 something. So we haven't broken 500 yet.
Right.
So this is a great PSA for Black Earth, which I fully support. And it does save the town money. It's coming out of our pockets, but we're happy to do it. But we're saving the town money. Every resident is saving the town money, saving everybody money from discarding the waste. But with the 4 acres in the back that the ice arena that we own, but the ice arena has leased, I've started to have a conversation about can we take not take that, but can we make an amendment to the lease where we potentially could do something there and have their parking, because they need that parking for big games. But for a limited amount of time throughout the whole year, it's needed, but it is needed. So they need parking, but that's where the idea for me came across the street. If we can incorporate that, and that's the overflow parking to the first parking lot. Again, just an idea. 4 acres back there is a lot. That they have the rights to. We're going to renew their lease soon for another 10 years. Then they have another 10 years. So we'd have to work out an agreement that they would have to agree to. But again, that's what we're here for. Throw out ideas. I didn't know that was theirs until recently, to be honest with you. We recently found parking across from the senior center, Pleasant Street Center, that even the park committee didn't know about. We found 12 spots. So the more we dig and the more we learn, I think it benefits decision-making. So I was originally thinking,
sorry, just coming on Zoom.
I'm sorry.
Marilyn?
Oh, hi, thank you. I'm Marilyn Shapley, Chair of the Council on Aging, and I apologize, Karen was not able to attend tonight, but she will be in the future, I'm sure. So I said I would sit in tonight. There was a question about the survey result and interest in the facility being open evenings and on weekends. And this is the senior center / community center. And across the board, 49% did want it open on evenings and weekends. And even among the older age groups, until you get up to 80, it's still above 45% in most of the age groups want it open in evenings and weekends. We also found that up until about age 69, we still have almost half of our seniors, myself included, still working. So those evening hours are really important if we're going to remedy our current situation by creating an inclusive senior center, which I sincerely hope we will. So just wanted to share the facts from the finding from the survey.
thank you.
You're welcome.
So I initially, and I understand, when Nancy and Heather, and I think all of us would agree that evaluation is important, but I was originally thinking, I think the town can do it, Fidel can correct me, that we do, because April is not far away, but to ask for money, so what do we do from now until April? Just twiddle our thumbs, but to put out a community survey that we can do ourselves at a nominal, if not any cost, and then just get some more input from that. And we'll get maybe different age ranges, and just then we could talk about that a little bit. And maybe that'll give us a glimpse into a more detailed analysis that may cost some money,
Yes. So the Reading ARPA Advisory Committee, essentially, we brought in Jane Walden, who is in basically our communications person. She attended a meeting. She got some ideas, basically, which is this, right? Like what questions are you asking? Is it do we want to know demographics of responders, for example, what priorities, right? And is it like a ranking priority, or is it like one question that we talked about a lot was if you had $1, and you have to spend it on 6 things, how would you split it, right? So she did it. She did it on SurveyMonkey and put it out, and we got 1,300 responders. I mean, it was great.
And that was for which project?
For the ARPA committee.
For the ARPA committee, right, yeah.
For the
That's
ARPA
great.
committee.
No, I think that would be very helpful.
That would be very helpful.
And that
was
really is
free.
like our first task, right? Is to
Yeah.
do a
Right.
survey,
Really, we need
a
this.
preface that describes what this is.
Right,
I
yeah.
actually think a little video describing what this is, but I don't do videos very well, but that might be kind of cool. I don't know. It seems like when we're sending out a survey, we should find a way to concisely explain what this is, how much land there is to work with. I mean, unless you have had kids in baseball or hockey, there's a strong chance you've never even been over there and not seen it. I didn't know about that corner of Reading until I had kids that were old enough to go do those things as well. So you guys might want to describe a little bit about that.
No, and I think what Fidel just mentioned, obviously what goes into future agenda items of inviting Jane.
So would Jane be willing to do a survey like this for us?
I am sure Jane would be happy to attend.
Jane likes me a lot.
Yeah. She'll be volunteered.
But I guess, so that, are we good? We're talking about that right now? Is that a good idea? And then next is discuss next meeting dates. So obviously, the closer we get to the election and town meeting, our time will be limited. So I'm sure we can squeeze one in February. I don't know if Fidel has all the lovely calendars up, but I think we know where most of us meet.
Sorry if I'm interrupting. I'm away the 1st through the 15th. I know not everybody's going to be able to make it, but we have, like, I think, are we in the 3rd week of January or after the? So I don't know.
I think
Just throwing it out there.
I think what we said was the 3rd week of the month, the 3rd Wednesday of the month. I think is what we agreed upon.
Okay.
Kind of throw it out, but that is the 15th of February.
That's the 15th and I'm flying home. So
I also cannot be, I will be flying home from DC on the 15th.
Then there's vacation week. Is that what Nancy
Yeah,
said?
the next one is
Following week.
vacation.
Oh, the
Right,
next
the
week is
following week.
vacation.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't bother me. I'm here. Others.
Are you guys away for vacation week or are you here?
Me is to be determined because I only have one kid at home, so it really depends. But yeah, I think PBC meets, Nancy, how often?
We meet well, I can't remember. That's
First,
first Monday of every month, so it doesn't bother me.
Mondays, and conservation is two.
Second Wednesday and fourth. We were meeting twice
Okay,
a month.
rec is on Mondays, I know that.
Rick's on Monday,
Rec's on
second
Mon-
Monday.
Rec's on Mondays.
Is Thursday? an
Heather,
option?
Heather's is Mondays.
Mondays,
Yeah.
School
Or
committee meets
Thursday.
Thursday.
every week.
Oh, no,
Well,
well,
not right now, but yeah, it's every other week.
I was just thinking the 16th instead of the 15th, but I'm here during
Do
school
we have a
break, so
meeting?
if
Do you
you're
have
here.
the town?
you find it out.
I can always zoom in. I mean, we have no plans to go away right now, but I'm always amenable to Florida myself, so if I can get down there, but I could definitely zoom in.
I won't be Zoomable.
So-
I won't be Zoomable. Are you? I don't know if you're.
No, I'll be coming home. Oh, actually, wait, no, I'm coming home on Tuesday, the 14th is what I decided. So, but you won't be here, so
Valentine's Day, okay.
yeah, that sounds good.
So 15th,
I think we're saying the 16th. Thursday, do we say?
Well, I was throwing
Looking
out the
for
16th is a Thursday, but I forgot that school committee meets then, and I don't know if that's a conflict.
Or the 22nd, if no one, I mean,
I think we'll have a cons coming.
okay, gotcha.
What about the 15th? Oh, you're not.
I'm trying to find your calendar. It's the school's calendar.
school committee.
I think we meet on the 16th. Oh, actually,
Is there a reason to not
We can meet earlier.
meet earlier on the 8th?
I think on conscom.
That's right.
Second.
Second one.
I won't be here. I won't be here on the 8th. We can always meet. I think tonight was 7 o'clock for a few reasons, but we can always meet earlier. These meetings aren't long. So I'm also open to that. If anybody wants to meet at 5, if everyone can do that.
When is that?
Well, whatever day we pick sometimes, I'm
Oh,
saying
yeah.
as an option,
Sure.
as an option, we can always meet earlier. I'm sure town staff would
Oh, you
appreciate
mean
that.
earlier than a later meeting?
Yeah, earlier in a later meeting, but
yeah.
instead of 7.
I don't know about 5.
Well, I'm just throwing it out there, whatever. Yeah, whatever. I'm just throwing it out there. So,
I'm generally pretty flexible, except for those couple days in February.
so is the 15th out of the question?
Well, for Angela.
Well, I'm gonna be on a plane,
Yeah,
so, you know,
I mean, if there's 6 of us, yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, well, you know.
I mean, everybody's not gonna be at every meeting.
I think if we try not to encroach on vacation week, it'd be considerate, I think. These usually,
Chuck, as of right now, there is a placeholder for a school committee meeting on the 9th, February 9th.
Yeah, so then there would be one on the 16th.
or the placeholder one, just a placeholder, then your normal meetings on the 16th.
Anything that says placeholder
Yeah,
is a meeting.
so for the
So does
9th,
that mean
for the
there's
9th.
not one on the 16th, the
I'm
following week?
sure there is, because it would be well, actually, that would be the following week, you know, so
Right.
then, but we won't meet vacation week.
So you might move that one up. too.
Yeah. I mean, I thought we were gonna stick to Wednesdays anyway.
Let's do Wednesday.
I think the 15th is good for this next meeting, if that's okay, then.
So 15th at 5:30, so what we agreed?
6,
6?
people time to eat.
Or get home.
Yeah, that too.
My wife is away that day, but I'll join from home.
I might join some.
Okay, so right now we'll say 15th to the 6th, at 6 o'clock,
And
assuming Jane, that works for Jane.
sure, absolutely. Yeah, and we'll keep kind of that meeting as a focus of the survey. I mean, if we could magically get a survey out by town meeting, that it would be nice to, because that's when people are paying attention, kind of thing, you know?
Yeah, so, excuse me, so Jane already has kind of a template from the not ARPA, the recalc committee survey, so I think. ARPA, yeah, ARPA, sorry, I think, so I was right the first time. And so that will help us guide us a little bit, that we're not starting from scratch. And then we can just, you know, brainstorm and obviously come with our own ideas ahead of time on what we think is must-haves,
I
right?
think with the, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I think with, you mentioned the high subscription to that survey. I mean, whenever you're asking people how can we spend money, we're not gonna get that many responses for this, I don't think. Maybe. But
But we'll get responses by people who are actually interested in it. That's
Right,
okay.
right. That's what we want.
So with ARPA, one of the biggest group we found was lacrosse parents
for the wall.
for the wall. Exactly, exactly. So this being recreation, you know, oriented, potentially could draw a lot of attention. We will share the results of that survey and the template ahead of that meeting with everyone here.
All right, that'd be a good idea.
and it will be finalized on that day, right? It like, it's,
No.
yeah.
No, we'll.
And I think that, I mean, I know it says items plural, but I think that will probably be the main focus of our next meeting is the
Survey.
talking about the survey, unless anyone has any other ideas, but I really can't think of any right now.
As far as future agenda items, I would like to, I really think that we need to stay open to possibilities. So I think it would be a good idea to, you know, have a conversation with Jenna, Community Service. It might be good to, I mean, we have these people who invite the following people to lend their professional guidance. It might be a good idea to get some people in. because I've had conversations with Jenna about, rec complexes in other towns and how, what she's visited, where, the pros, the cons. I think it would be good to continue the conversation with, I just can't keep all of the acronyms straight. The senior center group, RAC, recalc, RAC.
Yeah.
And do it. With recalc. I think that would be good. I don't know whether we want to just, no, Karen is represented.
Right,
Yes,
right.
she's the representative, but I do think that
Council on Aging.
Council on
Yeah,
Aging,
right.
but yeah.
I mean, to your,
Yeah, go ahead.
to your point, I think the survey is gonna set the baseline for, who we want to bring in.
I think we're a little early. I don't disagree with you, but I think we're a little early for that.
That will, I mean, if we don't get it, if no one in the survey says they want us to do anything with the senior center, then it wouldn't be, in my mind, wouldn't be something we should be discussing at that point, right?
Well, I mean,
So
Maybe I think the survey is gonna really lend itself to what we want to focus on for, I guess, community experts or whatever. Right? Or maybe I'm,
No, I,
well, I mean, Fidel did say that, the highest group of people who answer that were the lacrosse wall people.
and they got their
there may
wall.
have been a little bit of organizing
Definitely.
behind
It was
that.
definitely a lot organized.
And you don't,
From recreation department, I'll say, but yeah.
it's going to give us ideas of
Yeah.
what we want to do, but it doesn't mean that we exclude something just because,
Yeah, maybe I was.
Yeah,
harsh.
no, not exclude. I
I
just,
just want to hear what they're thinking of, and then we as a group have the prerogative to make sure that we're going in the right direction.
Yeah, I should be a little bit embarrassed to ask this. This will reveal that I haven't been following the recalc process as tightly as I should. But anyhow, I'm never too embarrassed to ask anything. A basic question I have is, in the work that committee is doing, do they have their eyes on this property? Or is this like,
they're aware of
no,
it.
they don't want it, this isn't desirable for a number of reasons. So the people who are spending their committee time and I think they're evaluating options for this, is do they want that Symonds Way to be considered? For
And that's where you would
it's-
bring, and that's where you bring, as Binda says, bring,
Yeah, yes.
Angela says you bring.
It's
Angela
still-
says, bring it
yes.
in.
It is still on the table,
Okay.
and that is why I'm saying that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would want to bring them in to say, no, forget it.
Forget
It's not
it.
even going to work, even though people say it might be an interesting idea,
Right.
but we need to hear that.
We
And
need
if,
to hear
and if
that.
and if they think it's an interesting idea, but they're not considering it, they could even put that in an email and we wouldn't have to spend a whole thing. But if they're
No, I think-
interested in it, then we.
But I think the town, we should find out what the town is saying about it.
Yeah.
first. I mean, as I said, I don't think we need to preclude anything or should preclude anything because there's so many variables. And maybe that the senior center, the main senior center stays, but there are senior activities in a big community center that dovetails with all of this. So there's so many options we don't even know about yet.
It's
I
all
think.
in the vein of kind of taking stock of what the needs are.
Right.
I mean, and do we have information from other surveys that have been done that would help us understand the needs? So we're doing a survey. This isn't the first crack at understanding what the community needs. I mean, there are
Correct.
other up-to-date sources for what community needs
That
are. We
ARPA
should be
one would
incorporating.
give us a
ARPA.
lot.
For sure, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the survey that Recom just did, I mean, and what was presented.
Yeah.
I will share that report with this committee as well.
Okay.
But I also want to say, while recreation was presented to town meeting as one possibility, there was a presentation that this is a good piece of land. Possibly. I mean, I thought,
Not as good as we thought.
not as good
It was
as
a
we
little
thought,
sitting-
okay.
I was sitting there thinking, I don't know.
I thought it was a lot for this land, but anyway, it was town meeting, the body of town meeting that purchased it or approved the purchase of it with no expectations. So I really think that, we have to keep that in mind, that the people who approved the purchase of it were not specifically directed in one path and were told this is a good piece of land. We have had the piece of land at Oakland Road for so many years, and maybe something needs to be done with it. But there are, I'm a person who believes that there could be a use 5 years from now that we might need. So the rush to develop something for the sake of, we've only had it for 3 years, we bought it, we need to do something with it, is something that experience has taught me might not be the best fit. And I also think that we really need to think broadly, because a lot of you probably remember that plan that went to town meeting to put that kindergarten building in the parking lot of the school, because it was just focused in, and a committee got ahead of themselves and were like, this is it, it's the best thing. All of town meeting is going to say yes, 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 and town meeting shot that down. So I'm saying, let's be open about this. Let's think about what was the purpose when town meeting approved it, and that was possibly recreation, or possibly it's really good to just have a piece of land in case we need a piece of land. And I just don't want to go from here to here.
So a suggestion, maybe a request for the next meeting, as we're talking about this survey. In preparation for that, could we also get the results of kind of any other relevant surveys? The ARPA ones comes to mind. I mean, what we want in downtown may not be so relevant, but if there are other surveys that have been done, so that if we're doing, as we do our other survey, we're being additive and honing in on anything that's specific to this property, as opposed to repeating broad questions that we may already have the answer to.
Yeah.
Yep.
Marilyn, is that your hand still up, or do you have another question?
Yeah, no, it's a comment on the survey you're going to do. I just encourage you, because there's been a lot of information sharing focusing on the former Walgreens site, and as far as I know at the moment, that is not currently likely to be. I don't know. It's not a forerunner to my knowledge. I guess that's the fairest statement I can make. And if you looked back a couple of months ago, there was a lot of emphasis on that. So your audience may be confused in getting a survey and may think, oh, well, the senior, because they don't necessarily know where things stand. I barely know where things stand. It's a moving target. I know, and people are working hard on it, but they're looking at other options. There's an RFP out that's running to the end of the month, Fidel, is that correct? To get other proposed possible sites. So it's very much under consideration. So I just ask that you phrase it so that people are not assuming that the senior center has been taken care of and that we don't really need to think about it for this site, because we may need to think about it for this site. And again, to my knowledge, it has not yet been given any serious consideration, because other places were, but that it's a changing scenario. So I just caution on the wording of the question to make sure people realize the senior center is not taken care of yet. So that's all.
No, and I agree, and no one's looking to rush this. We have, I think, almost a year to
Right.
have meetings and have public discourse and just.
Right. No, I'm talking about the wording of the survey you're talking about.
Yeah, no, and we're gonna hash
Okay.
that out, right? We're gonna hash that out.
All right. Okay, just wanted to throw that out there, because
No, thank you. And I for me, to me, seniors and gunshots don't go hand in hand.
I can hear them from my bedroom when the when the wind blows the right way, and I'm way over on the other side of town.
But they're running, they have adrenaline going. But again, like if we're talking about outdoor space for seniors
Yeah.
at that site, my guess is if that was a question, would you be okay to have, the gun range in close proximity?
Yeah.
Again, I don't know.
It's okay for our children, so I'm assuming it's okay for our elders.
They can hear us, no.
Well, a good point, but, it's- that's my knee-jerk reaction, that
Okay,
I don't want to be around gunfire. It's just,
Yeah,
it's not normal. It's just not normal.
I think the other piece to this is that once we get a direction, the site is going to prove limiting as to what we can do.
Right.
So it is.
Depends how high up we go. If it's a
Well,
building,
that's-
depends how high up we
You're
go.
right, and that might dictate what we then decide goes in.
Correct. One story versus 3 stories is a big
Combination.
difference. Correct.
So getting input, I think, is really important. Then I think thinking about how that structure could actually be on that site is going to be another important part. And then just a little caution on the GIS maps that we saw. What wasn't shown were all the vernal pools that are on that site you were talking about. So just FYI, it's not a clear, this is land that can have.
Oh, I never said it was.
No,
I
I
never said
know.
it
but
was.
I think we need to.
I think it's something to consider. That's all I was saying. Something to consider.
Yeah, it's like we might want to consider, okay, how would we use that? But we got this very good, preliminary environmental analysis from Weston Sampson, so that we don't have that for that.
For those sites.
Right. Correct.
Right near a wetland, right near the pond. I mean, it's probably not all dry in there.
There's a lot going on there. There's a lot going on.
It's also an endangered species zone, so.
Oh, awesome.
Are those items, are they newly dumped there, like those concrete things? Have they been there?
They've probably been there for a long time.
They've been there for,
Yeah, no,
That site was actively used for years by family.
yeah, but there was no environmental testing that was done when we purchased the land. That wasn't.
No,
That
for my
sounds
time.
like not,
No.
yeah.
Yeah.
pretty sure there wasn't. Don't quote me, but I don't
I'm
think
going
so.
to ask about that next time.
The town may consider, leave it the way it is.
That's right. That's
They might say
another
that.
consideration,
It's like Oakland Road.
right?
That neighborhood does not want anything at Oakland Road.
Right.
Right? That's, a process that Fidel started to get some input and get the neighborhood's input, and it was not well received. But it doesn't mean that that's nothing's going to be built there.
Yeah.
But based on that initial meeting, you would think not. But again, we've owned that for decades. This is more recent. I understand that, but I don't want to wait 20 years to say, okay, let's keep on having surveys, keep on hashing it out, keep on talking about it until we're blue in the face, and then, we're paying triple the amount of to build it, whatever. But I'm not saying it's going to happen next year. I'm not going to happen 2 years from now. It's a process that could be something that we focus on, hone in on, present, and other people shoot it down. So that's just, that's just the way it goes. Recalc has done their due diligence. They got some money. They're still working on it. The Walgreens right now is, as Marilyn said, off the table currently, but it may come back. Another property that is being considered in the downtown area. Obviously, this is a consideration. So there's no definites on anything yet. A lot of things are going on in town, and this is just one of them. And then what's the cost?
Mhm.
Is it on us? Do we do private, public?
Right.
Do we do just fields, which is a lot less money? I mean, Birch Meadow we're only in phase 1 of Birch Meadow. We have to fund phase 2 and phase 3 still. So where are the priorities? So, all right, so we have a date. I'm not disagreeing with you, Angela, but I think we're a little early to bring in
That's fine.
Yep. Jenna and Recalc and all that, but I didn't see any minutes attached. Do we?
There were minutes on the packet.
Yeah, they were.
Jackie, I don't know if you can pull them up. Jackie?
I'm sure they're pretty simple, so.
They're very simple. It was election.
There was a packet?
There was a packet. I was.
There was,
Yeah, it was in,
Oh, okay.
it was at the very end of the attachment.
Thank you,
it
Mr.
was after the appraisal in the back.
That was where at the end.
I looked them over, they seem okay.
I'm sure they're pretty
Very simple.
basic, yeah.
I have no objection.
Chuck,
Move to approve the minutes of December 12th, 2022.
Second.
second, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, 6-0. Another motion?
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
No discussion. All those in favor? Aye. All right,
Good job.
thank you, everyone.
All right.
I've already.
Thank you, Fidel.
February 15th,
Right.
meeting's adjourned. Thank you.
Survey.